How you doing? Good.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all so much for coming. This is a special call meeting of the Mayor and Board of Aldermen, City of Moss Point. Roll call, please.
Chapman.
Present.
Bradford.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Present.
Alderman Dubose. Alderman Robastro.
Present.
Alderman Chastain. Alderman Lund.
Here.
There we have.
Thank you, gentlemen. You have before you agenda for the evening. The item on the agenda is the budget presentation. Interim Superintendent David Graves. And we also have an executive session on potential litigation that our city attorney requested. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda? So moved. Second. Motion by Alderman Wilson and second by Alderman Leonard that we accept the agenda for today. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's have it. I want to thank the superintendent and Attorney Carlo and the board for coming today to make a presentation of your 2027 budget. So, Mr. Interim Superintendent, in your own way.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Board, and also other citizens. Thank you for allowing us to come and stand before you today. I did want to just do a few things before we get started. I wanted to announce to the Aldermen, our theme for this year is built different. Moss Point made. You'll see that on the shirts that you have there. It's goes to a part of our theme with what we're wanting to do and what we are. We know that Moss Point is a city that is resilient. When we get knocked down, we get back up. And we love hard and we fight. So with that being said, it's been a blessing to be a part of the Moss Point School District, to be able to do just that for our students. And what we do have before you, if you have your packet there, you do see we want to provide a notice of a proposed ad valorem tax effort. We do have our consultant, attorney Bonnie Drain here. She will speak to you regarding that on the district's behalf. So on that, at this time, I would ask for her to come and to give her the presentation.
Good evening. I'm Bonnie Granger. I'm helping the district through the transition with the administration. I wanted to come to you tonight. In coming to you, we wanted to first say that we are a little premature for tonight. There are some things that we need to work out between the county and us on how we're going to do as far as the final ad valorem numbers. We have preliminary numbers from the county, but when I tried to contact the county, some of the key players that goes on are out of town. It'll be next week before we get final. Okay, and our public hearing is on Tuesday of next week. So I just wanted y'all to know that they'll be in town later on. But just to give you an idea about the ad that was running the paper, which is what I was asked about, it's that some of the things that the public needs to understand are that we have had a tremendous amount of unfunded mandates be put on the school district here in Moss Point by the legislature. Okay. Y'all are also aware, I know, of the PERS increase that y'all are having to absorb in your budget, which is the 0.5% for the next 2 years, and we've done 0.5% increase in the employer contribution. Y'all are all aware of that because y'all are living through that yourselves. But what happened this year was when the legislature passed the pay raise, which the teachers deserve, a pay raise too. But what they did over the funding formula is they put the pay raise inside the funding formula, the new Mississippi funding formula that passed in 2024. Okay. Now, in 1997, when MAEP was passed, there was a hold harmless that went into effect until 2024, when they did away with the Mississippi Adequate Education Program. But, okay, Moss Point has always had a hold harmless since way back in those days, after y'all lost International Paper and the bigger industry here. In fact, at one point, a lot of y'all probably remember Moss Point was one of the most prosperous cities on this Gulf Coast. I remember y'all having Apple computers before any of the rest of the districts had, okay? Well, Moss Point has had that hold harmless all of these years. And then in 2024, when the legislature passed the new funding formula, they did away with the hold harmless and only let you keep it 4 years, okay? So not only are we facing what is happening this year, which what ended up happening is for the teacher and assistant teacher pay raise, Moss Point District did not get a dime more than we got last year, because they put the pay raise inside the formula, and the whole harmless amount, it did not cover the whole, it did not get above the whole harmless amount. So the school district is having to absorb the complete teacher pay raise. So in looking at this and some enrollment numbers and such, you can see where there's been some drops in enrollments and things of that nature for that. But in looking at this, you will see that the state mandated $2,000 pay raise is costing around a little over $385,000. Just that, okay? Then you have an $821,000 increase in PERS for all the employees of Moss Point Schools. And remember, no more state money, okay? Then you have about $95,000 that the health insurance, because the school district's under the mandated state and school health insurance plan. We don't have our own separate plan like the cities do, okay? So you have a large amount of money right there that is causing a little over $2,888,000 of state mandated increases with no money to pay for. Now, this is why, first of all, when this ad was run, it says notice of proposed ad valorem tax effort. We have to run our ad before the county ever gets the numbers pulled together because of the difference in the fiscal years. The fiscal year for the school districts is July 1 to June 30th, even though the budget's August 15th. And we have to have our proposal to y'all, our request for ad valorem taxes to y'all before August 15th, okay? That's why we're in a crunch getting all the numbers in at the same time, trying to see how many kids are showing up for each class and all of those kinds of things, all going on at the same time, okay? And so what we did is we went ahead and we put in the ad because we had no idea what the assessed value was doing at that time, what 4% would bring. And in addition to the minimum, the amount of money we got for hold harmless, Moss Point Schools' local contribution to the funding formula was an increase of $154,000. Now, so that is where we came up with the numbers that actually went in the paper. These numbers are not firm until we get more information from the county. And then we'd like to, probably talk to some of y'all also, and us all be where we need to be to help ourselves with as much as we can of that $1.2 million. And if you look at it, it's like $600,000 difference. It's not the whole 1.2. At the same time, the school district is having to look at places to cut. At the same time, we are having, drastic as y'all are too, increases in diesel prices and things of that nature, everything is going up. And so we wanted you to see this, but to make matters worse, I want y'all to understand, not only are we looking at this year, we're also trying to look at next year. Next year, for 28, if the student numbers remain constant and we don't have a pay raise, which is, we've already been promised there will be another pay raise, okay? If we have everything the same and losing that hold harmless, that's $2,235 that we've got to absorb then, in addition to any pay raise, another 0.5%, 0.05%. PERS is going, this year went from 18.4 to 18.9. Next year it will go from 18.9 to 19.4. That's already in law. And then the following year to 19.9. Okay. We'll have that also. Every year we're having at least a 6 to 10% increase in the health insurance on the employer side. So some real firm decisions are about to have to be made in the Moss Point School District over the next 2 years in order to stay afloat. Okay, so that's what we wanted to make sure that y'all understood as we're going into this budget process. Okay, so as far as any kind of increase, all of that will depend on what the final numbers are on the value of a meal, as well as what legally we can do on trying to help as much as we can, because we really don't want, the school district does not want to do drastic cuts to programs or employee staff and things of that nature, but we're already having to look at some things. Okay, so that's what we're doing. Okay. Any questions?
I have some questions. Mayor, look, as a member of this board, I fully understand the PERS burden and our bill values here have not been great, so we struggle with that. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, we had to do a tax increase. Now, the city has done very little, if any, tax increases for many, many, many years. As a matter of fact, for many years, when the school district needed more, we would shift that over to the school. School could raise millage. We would even lower ours to keep the total millage low. So I'll just say that to say, we get what you mean when cuts are necessary, because we experience them. We avoided an increase last year when we probably needed it again, because we have public safety needs, but we just had to bite the bullet. So I get what you mean by just the expenses going up, and I also get the hold harmless going away and the lack of funding, but no, we've known hold harmless was going away eventually for many years. We've known about it. It's coming. It's been this thing that's coming. I'd like to know what's been going on to plan for that. That eventually to happen. And also, I hear a lot about, we're not getting money from the state or enough money from the state, but yet the state is funding most of the salaries. Right?
Anymore, not with a new funding formula.
Well, I know you have to pay PERS and you have a percentage, you have to pay benefits and all that, but there is a pretty good chunk of money coming from the state.
There is, and it is going to decrease immediately. And I even have texts from legislatures that are involved in things that say, and from now on, every time we pass a pay raise, the locals are going to have to absorb it. And that, a portion of it. And, under the funding formula, and actually, board attorney at one point was the education chair and in the legislature. And for it has always been that the local contribution for the funding formula was the lower of either the value of 28 meals or 27% of the funding formula. Okay? And that's what the legislature means is that, but realize in all the other pay raises that they've done in the last several years, they have done it as a separate stream of revenue. Okay? So it gave a year for it to get the pay raise amount for it to get infiltrated back into the formula. This year, they did not do that, and they didn't pass the pay raise until the last minute of the legislative session, when most districts had already put out teacher contracts.
And I appreciate, as looking at at least the numbers in the ad, obviously there have been some cuts. What strains my thinking, and I get a lot of questions about this because the city's the one that has to levy the tax, is, when I was in school here, we probably had 3 times as many students enrolled. As a matter of fact, the entire district now was pretty much what we had at the high school when I was at Marshall High School. But yet we have 4 empty campuses that remain there, and we have asked year after year, please sell them, do something with them, find out a way to get revenue, and to get, not just to make revenue from them, but to get them off your books so you don't have to insure and maintain them. So that's one thing.
Totally agree.
And I don't understand the reluctance and why we just year after year after year, we ask this, but year after year, we don't get that. We need more money. And the other thing is, the numbers I've seen, all total spending is like, I wrote it down, over $20,000 per student, where the state average is $12,000. So we're like, or I think it was $23,000 per student if you look at total spending at Moss Point. So we're twice what the state average is. So our enrollment has been trending downward, but our expenses are trending upward. And our people, I started out by saying we've made some cuts here. We just really need you to look at where I would assume your big driver is personnel. We're looking at, I'm seeing numbers like a student ratio of 9 to 1. So 9 students per teacher. I mean, I've talked to teachers. One told me that he's got a class with 6. He's got another class with, I think, 9, and he's off a period because there's not enough to do. I mean, I think I see a real need to really take a look at personnel. It's just there, and that's got to be your cost driver. And I don't know what else you can look at, but we need some help.
Yeah, I think that I just came back into the district to help in the last couple of months. And I think we're going to have to, one of the things that I have probably complained more about than anything is those empty buildings and paying insurance on them. I've heard through the grapevine that y'all may have some need for some of them. I don't know, with some groups. I think that is something that definitely needs to be looked at. I think the schedule.
Well, it should have been looked at years ago. Those buildings didn't just come empty this year.
But as like I said, as I came back to the district to help, I think we've got to look at all programs. We've got to look at school structure. We've got to look at schedules. We got to look at everything, because we cannot survive. The school district cannot survive the types of cuts that, we're under state mandate as far as all the teacher contracts. We're under state mandate to honor those contracts for this school year. But there's got to be a lot of things looked at for over the next few months. I totally agree.
Should have been over the last 5 years, probably. And I'll end with this, Mayor, because I know somebody else may have questions, but I mean, I don't know that you would want to make this drastic of a move, but you could put the entire district in 2 campuses right now. The high school in Magnolia being our newest school. You could put all of them in 2 campuses. Now, so I would think at least 3 out of the 4 that you have now, at least. But you really could. I mean, you could literally squeeze them all into high school. I wouldn't want you to do that. That's going to be crowded. But based on when I was there and the amount of space that's there, the numbers work. And this 1,500 enrollment for 2025. I think that's more like 1,300 that I've seen, numbers like 1,306. And you've got what, we're hearing stories of 30, 40% truancy. So, I mean, the amount of kids that are there every day, that's a sad number if that's happening. But come on, we really need some major moves here. And I just would like to know, and I'm closing with this, talking about that, maybe those moves, and also the already empty campuses. What is the reluctance? Apparently there's a reluctance to do it because it's just not happening. It's just not being done. When we ask, we just get, well, we'd like to, or maybe, and we're looking at it, we're going to look at it. We've got empty campuses now. It could be sold off, and we have a potential to consolidate more campuses based on enrollment. That's all. Thank you.
Any other?
Comments?
Questions? Well, Mr. Leonard he must have invaded my mind or something. Because I come here tonight to talk about the same thing. When you ride around the city mall, you see all these empty buildings. Just the grass cutting alone at Charlotte Heights and them big property. Do you have a realtor working with you that's planning to sell them or putting the price, bidding them out or something?
I don't know the answer to you.
We're paying for stuff that we're not using.
We have a separate insurance policy for the vacant buildings. Save a lot that way. On a separate policy.
Is it free? Is it free?
But it's drastically reduced, and we have talked about and looked at selling the vacant properties. We have a couple of problems. We can't consolidate schools because we're under consent decree with the federal court. So anything we do with that, we have to have approved. With respect to selling the schools, some of the offers that we have gotten so far have all been give us the school. We have resources we have to protect, but we are looking at all of that right now and have been, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the comment, I understand, and we are, that's all I can.
As far as the consent decree, if I may follow up there, what do you mean by that? You can't, we have consolidated schools before. Some have now. I mean, West is closed, East Park's closed, so we've consolidated schools. But when you say we're under a consent decree and it needs approval, what does it take to get approval? And are we even trying?
Not right now, but we have to go to the federal court and approve, is all I'm saying. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying that's who is in charge. We have to look at that. We have to go there. But all of those things we're going to have to look at while we're looking at the budget. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I'd like to know more about the consent decree later. Offline, we can talk about that. Thank you, Scott.
Yes.
Anything else that I may make?
One question, Mr. Mayor. This is probably more of a administrative question, and I just did some rough math, quick math. Difference between the 27 proposed budget and 26. My math is right. If my numbers are right, it's difference of 638,000. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is if the numbers come in, like I said, these numbers were all proposed before any information was obtained at all from the county, and we're still waiting on the county's final numbers. We've got preliminary, we're still waiting on them, and so we're waiting for us to be able to set up a meeting with them to find out what of that we can't get is basically out.
So when do you expect to?
This week, early next week. One of the key players is out of state, so I'm trying to get them back here so we can. Okay.
So, in a proactive kind of way, what have you done to cut into that 638?
On the second, I know we have eliminated quite a number of positions, already. I know that bus monitors were cut drastically, the numbers that we had on the others. We're just looking at class sizes. as we are going through the classes and as the students, you know, as we're looking at that, that's something that we'll be looking at. But we have to remember, we're already under contract with all of them. Okay, so there's
That
no,
number's not gonna change.
that number of teachers is not going to change. The only place legally that the district can do anything with at this moment is if people leave due to attrition or, you know, or possibly some classified situations. But we just got to look at it to see what's available to do. And I mean, you know, when you start talking about buildings and all, I'll just tell you, I have personally approached the board of supervisors because I live in Jackson County also and said, is there not anything y'all can do to steer some business towards Moss Point? Because Moss Point Schools needs a tax base. And pretty much the answers I've got is, Bonnie, we have all tried to give away the International Paper site as far as taxes and things of that nature. But because of the federal flood zone issues, they have yet to be able to bring any business into Moss Point that's significant. But I have personally asked for that myself because I know how important it is for the school district to see. So I just wanted to mention that. You know? So it's not just a situation in some of these building situations. We may very well have some of these flood zone issues and those types of things too to deal with.
Yeah, I attend school board meeting and time. I want to ask some question, might be beating off the past, but do we have some kind of internal problem with, you know, we didn't have more superintendents in the last 5 years than presidents of the United States. Is there a problem that we can't retain our superintendents for some kind of consistency? What's going on? I mean, look like we got a leadership problem or something. I mean, because that will affect folks not wanting any children here. I can assure you, we can go to Pascagoula in the morning and collect over 200 children that lives in City Mall once they're going to Pascagoula. I guarantee you we can do that. So is it a leadership problem or what's going on at that level?
Yeah.
But
She said, because it's personnel, you can't.
oh, I ain't kidding, calling no names. I'm just saying is there's a reason we can't consistently keep a superintendent in this, because that affects the whole thing. Leaders, folks look at your leadership, they keep bouncing in and out and coming in and out. They're not gonna bring their children in. Business is not gonna come here. I mean,
No.
but if it's personnel, I understand that.
I have more of a comment than a question. You know, and it's kind of piggybacking what has already been discussed thus far. I know you all need the money. I know that you all need the help, the resources, and it's a challenge. You know, it's a challenge for us as well. You know, I hate this process of how this is given to us at what looks like what appears to be the last minute, though I know that's not the case, but it still hits us at this inconvenient time. I'm all with Alderman Leonard that we have to find constructive ways to work together because you have leverage in the district with your vacant properties. And we have made attempts over the years, over the past 5 years for me, where how can we build revenue? How could we add to your capital there at the school district for occasions just like this? The hold harmless is fairly new to me. I don't have all the history and understanding of it as some of the past board members, but I see that it's put us in a real bind and we have to work together more than against each other. You know, appearances are great, you know, support is great, but we have to find a way to work collectively together to come up with these solutions. Because at the end of the day, this affects us. And like Alderman Leonard said, we've been struggling just to maintain and keep our public safety afloat. It's a challenge. You know, so I don't know what the immediate solution is right now. I am interested in seeing what those final numbers from the county and what you all come up with as far as, but I am asking that as we had to make some serious sacrifices that that you all consider doing the same thing, and how we can help and supplement to the best of our ability, we will accommodate. But this right here, we got to do better. And this is for both sides. This isn't one side.
Certainly want to commend the school board and our acting superintendent and the rest of the entire body for the work that you guys have done. It's been great. You've done an outstanding job, and we made achievements that we're all proud of. So now we want to work with you now to see if we can cut into that differential. That's our objective now. So any projections at all, what that final number might look like from the county? We don't have any idea how much might look like.
Already you're asking about what the final bill will be worth from the county department. I do not think it's going to be a decrease from what it was last year, but I do not know that yet.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, I just want to add to that, if I could, Scott. I called Chancellor Clerk today, and he gave me a preliminary number of 191,600 is the value that they're looking at. So to say we have no idea, I think we have an idea. Is that the ballpark that you 191,000 per meal?
That's was last year.
Yeah, he did say it's down a little. And so is the cities, by the way. I think we're down to like 104, so we got to figure out how to, but I just wondered, is that the number you were waiting on, that final meal value, or are there other? Huh?
That number's.
I know it is, but is that what you're waiting on?
No.
There's other stuff? Okay. He helped us a lot. He can help you. I know that. Good guy, but I think that was, I can't remember my other question. Sorry. Go ahead, Mayor.
Good.
I can't remember what I was I'll come back to it. Oh, I do remember. So based on that meal value, if that holds true, hopefully it doesn't go lower, but and based on the ad, you need, or based on what Alderman Chapman said, you need about 638,000. So that looks like that would require about 3.3 meals based on that value. Scott, can you explain how you can go to that level without a referendum?
Well, that's a question that we want to talk to him about, because in state law, there is a ability to extend the 55 mil cap if you have a drop in assessed valuation.
If you have what?
A drop in assessed valuation. So there is some language in state law on that, but we got to do some further research before we get to that point.
And I'm familiar with that. I've seen it talked about before, maybe even done before, but I still thought that it still had to stay below the 55.
That is an exception to the 55 mil cap. There's also some exceptions to the 55 mil cap when it comes to collection fees. And there are some collection fees coming out of money and delinquency. So we need to further explore the whole picture. I don't think it's going to go up 3 meals or so, not on the operation side, but we need to see what we can do to try to work with y'all and them to try to see what is legal for us to do. Okay.
So that would push you up over 61, right? So if I did my math.
Yeah, possibly. But I'm not sure. We need to look.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. That was what I had. Thank you.
That's why we wanted to wait until we could actually meet with them.
And by the way, I've heard several compliments of you and how you've been working with our district. I just want to thank you for the work you've been doing.
I've been doing this close to 40 years now, so.
Scott, if you could do anything, or Randy, to explain about
Yeah, okay, 3757-104. That sets out what she's talking about. And just Bonnie and I go way back to that 1980s, so that tells you. So, and of course, I was chair of the education committee when we, of course, had a little different
take on what the funding should be. That's long gone. But what will be required though is going to have to be some communications because there is the 55 cap, but there are those under subsection. And I don't have all that up, but there are, once we get the official, what it generates, then you're going to back into what that meal would be. I mean, how many meals that would be required. And then you have to determine whether or not there are exceptions to that would allow that to occur. They don't have that yet. And that's what she's talking about. But I'll have to work with you five to ensure that we, number one, comply with the statute. Number two, fully educate not only this board and the mayor, but citizens also.
Alderman, both of those things are much better. than what you got. I'm going to sit down.
Oh, I want to see y'all go at it. Come on. Thank you, Mayor.
That's something, do you have any comments?
I'm new to the process. I'm trying to take it all in right now. This is my first time.
Let me just make a couple of comments in closing here. Thank you all for coming. Has a new superintendent been appointed yet? You working on that?
Yes,
sir. What my concern is that your public hearing is on Tuesday, right? And you have a public hearing without really knowing where we really are. And from our perspective, the public gonna ask us, do you agree and did you support? And, I don't know what we should say because we don't want to act like we're not in this together. So that's what my concern is, that you're having a public hearing, but we really haven't decided on, because I've heard that your needs could be from $600,000 to $800,000. I'm running numbers just like Alderman Wilson is, Alderman Leonard is. So we're not quite sure what the number going to be and ought to know what the millage ought to be. But we're going to have a public hearing, and I'm just wondering, how y'all think we ought to proceed with that?
situation where, as you know, our deadline is August the 15th to get y'all the numbers. And the board meeting, I believe, is August the 7th for the final adoption of the budget. So, as you know, we have to have 7 days between the final adoption and the public hearing. So next Tuesday is pretty much the drop dead date for us to have it. So that's why I was trying to get with the county and all this week, but later this week because of Chancellor Thurby now safe, so that we could handle all of this before next Tuesday night. All the finals. But in the meantime, we're going to do everything we can to get the budget and everything as close to actual as we possibly can on what expenses we can and things of that nature.
Okay, so I hope that you'll be willing to, once you everything in order, I think maybe appropriate for you to come back to us to have that conversation again so we can all be sure of what we're asking for going forward. The reason I asked about if the new superintendent was on board yet, because I know the interim superintendent just been dealing with this a few days. And some of the concerns that we have is, I guess maybe because we don't have a superintendent that was only with us for a year, but I'm even going back now to, Dr. Hopper, when we knew that this fellow homeless was going to be leaving us, why we had not planned, why we had not thought about this and kind of prepared for it. Now, all I'm going to suggesting going forward, because there's kind of nothing we can do about that now. But I just think it's got to be a lot of foresight and planning about what's coming down the pipe so we can better plan for it. Because now, like you said, Bonnie, you're all under contracts now with teachers and everybody pretty much, so you certainly can't, it'd be very difficult to try to break a contract. And yet these cuts need to be now. In a situation where you almost can't do anything about it because we got all these contracts that we got to live by. Whereas if we had known this before the contract was let, we could have not entered some of those contracts in order to deal with this deficit that we have. So somebody got to be thinking forward. Because like you're saying, what's going to happen in 828? Well, we're already behind the curve, Bob, on some of this stuff. Okay, the other thing is, what I would actually do, board, school board members, is to come up with a plan. We as a board would like to know what your plans are for the cuts. Alderman Little talked about consolidation, that attorneys say we have to get approval. Why don't we start looking at what it takes to get approval to consolidate? Because in my own mind, I agree with, why would we use all these facilities if we don't have to, if we're really trying to cut costs? And the public will understand that, I think, that we're trying to be frugal with our money, and we don't need all these schools open if we don't have to. When you got 1,500 kids that could fit in 2 facilities. I don't know how much money that would save you, but it just makes sense that you're not spread out all these places where you don't have the kids. Because you got these schools that you got 200-300 kids in that you, and the utilities for most of the whole building, but you don't really need the whole building. And you got all this other administrative costs or just cost period for personnel just to maintain that building that you don't need. So there could be cuts in those areas that if you just look at that and consider that. So I'm asking if you would come up with a plan that we can see as to how you plan to deal with this. What are the cuts and where they're going to come from? What is your thinking about consolidation? Now I have to go back to my notes and find out. I know two developers, we're talking about children that wanted the property to build houses on those properties. They want to build houses on those properties, then I would think there may be some babies in those houses that may put in our school district. So if we can have the property where somebody building houses on them, then that might be a possibility for us. So if you all could help us with, so give us your plan on how you're going to deal with all this. And then hopefully your new superintendent would think forward to think about this stuff before we need it, so we won't be under the gun like this all the time. We got a plan for the future, and this is what planning is all about. You develop a plan, then you simply work the plan. And money is all a part of that. Any other comments?
Let me ask one more question. In 2025, you had 1,520 students, right? That was in last year, 25. But said, how many did you have in 2026? And do you know how many we're going to end up with this year?
So our count for that particular year, last year, we ended up at 1,498. By October, we were like around 1,500. So roughly 1,500 students were where we were this past year.
You know, what about this year? You got 7?
This year, right now, we are about where we were last year, about 1,400 students. We look at normally the month of October as our time where we actually get all of our students in. But they're starting early. Every August, we don't have all our students back yet. But we're right now about where we were this time last year.
Ms. Gray, you've been around for a while. I've been knowing you. I want to commend you too with all the term going on. You're doing a good job. But I want to ask you a question. If you could point out one thing you feel it's costing them, the students just go down, other than graduation. I mean, I think we could do better to retain them and enhance them to come in.
Okay, so let me, I'm gonna speak back to you, make sure I heard this question correct. You mentioned something about graduation, correct?
Yeah, our new kids leaving to graduate. Hope we don't have to spend everything out. But I'm saying,
So,
other than that, what do you think the biggest cause amongst for a student choosing to go elsewhere with a
well, first I would say that, you will see in public education in many places, a decline as it relates to, numbers. One of the things that we are going to be intentional about this year, is probably, recognizing, celebrating, students. If you spoke to the, attendance piece, that is a statewide, concern in regards to chronic absenteeism, and even our state itself has changed attendance policies and have charged districts to have a more robust plan in how we actually address attendance. For example, after 3 absences, we are required not to send a robocall, not to send a text message, but we actually have to pick up the phone and actually speak to someone, do home visits. The state has mission and allowed us to use our truancy officers to actually do some of these home visits. So this, so those things that have trickled down from the state, we are seeking to implement with that piece. So the parent contact piece, making sure that we celebrate students, and again, in our district strategic plan, there is one thing that we believe in, that is learning should be fun. So we are seeking to have the learning to be engaging, to make sure that we have parental support, and again, to make sure that if we need to do home visits or whatever we need to do to bring students in, those are some of the things that we're implementing this year to make sure we have those numbers.
what's the dropout rate?
So I will say this, our last produced graduation rate is 96%, which we had the highest district-wide support in the state. So our dropout rate is not an issue.
Have a good year.
Yes, sir.
I was going to ask, do you have right now roughly the total number of teachers, including coaches, that you have on staff district-wide?
143, if you look at your sheet, it's
I
indicated.
didn't see it on there. I'm sorry.
Second. If you look at the second page, the highlight in the lower half, the first half, or the lower half.
The back of the first one?
On the back of the first page, yes. 143.
Okay, thank you. I see it now.
Just on the human side and lightening load up here. If we're gonna win this year, to me, do something, encourage me, something.
We're going to encourage you to come out and support the title.
Friday night's gonna be better,
Yes, we're gonna believe it so. Yes,
make it happen.
yes, sir. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you all so much for coming and enlightening us. Thank you all for the gift that you gave us. Thank you so much for that. We'll wear it with a lot of pride.
Thank you.
Thank you all for what you're doing. I know it's tough. I know it's tough. I mean, there's no doubt. We, like Alderman said, we're still cutting. We still broke, just like you guys are broke. That's why we got to work together to make this happen. School board, y'all got to respond to us and help us. But the big thing is we get so many complaints about the vacant buildings. And they really think the city has something to do with that. And they come saying, Billy Knight, what you gonna do with all these vacant school buildings? I don't have anything to do with that. They don't believe that. So y'all gotta help me with that because they beat me up about that. And it is a valid concern. And we ought to do something with it. So I hope you all work with us with that. Okay. If nothing else,
Yeah, Mayor, before we gotta go into closed session, terminate that executive session. The one thing I will add about Bonnie, in the school district. Obviously, you're very wise to bring her in. She is, I was around that world a long time, and there are several business officers around the state, but you can't find a better, more qualified person to help steer this ship. So I'm thankful that she's here. Having said that, we'll need a motion to close session to determine the need for executive.
Yeah, when you said you mentioned that, when I met with the superintendent the other day, I had no idea Bonnie was still around forever. When I was on the school board. And I asked him, I said, is Bonnie Wise gonna be at the meeting? And he said, I don't know, she might be on Zoom. I said, man, you need somebody to know what the hell they're talking about. So glad, Bonnie, I'm glad you're here to help enlighten us about it. Again, I know how difficult it is. Don't you think, I don't know how difficult it is. But you also mentioned that the board has to make some serious decisions. Y'all got to make some serious decisions. I mean, that's what you're there for. You got to make some serious decisions. And as long as you're being honest and you're doing what is fair, I think the public will accept it. But you got to make some serious decisions. And people are not going to like everything you make, but you got to do it. You just got to do it. I mean, you ain't got no choice. And so we wish you luck, and anything we can do to help you, please know we're here. But just have the courage to do the right thing. Because unfortunately, we just don't have the numbers of students that we used to have. We got everything else got to reflect that. Everything else got to reflect that. The number of teachers, the buildings, everything got to reflect the number of students we got. We can't act like we got more by looking at all these. No, it got to reflect the student body, because that's what everybody's looking at. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Motion
to
come out of regular session.
second to close general session, determine the need for executive session.
Second.
Okay. What's that executive session about? Legal issue?
Yes, sir. It's a potential litigation.
Okay. And that is an item that qualifies. So can I get a motion to go into an executive session?
We need a quick vote on the closed session to determine the need. We had a motion second, so a quick vote on that, and then the motion close executive.
Motion to close general session.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion to go into executive session?
Yes.
Motion to go into executive session?
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.
Second.